So in this episode of the podcast, we thought we'd kick off with a pretty important topic that we work with quite a bit. It's essentially reactive versus proactive. And we're going to get into the clear definition of what we mean by those. But the snapshot really is, are you waiting for it to happen or are you making it happen? So we're going to do a format where we'll sort of ask some questions, and we'll get into each of those things, and we'll deep dive with our knowledge and experience and share as much as we can between myself and Stuart. So, well, first of all, welcome, Stuart.
Marty, good to be here. You're looking good today, bud.
Thanks, mate. It's my new Corona cut that I've got going on. So yeah,
it's not
I'm working my way to be more like you.
Yeah, you should be so lucky, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So as we always say, the things that we talk about are always very relevant to what we do in our professional life, but also extremely relevant in our personal life too. So it's about the mindset that we choose and we take on. So, reactive versus proactive is certainly something that you have spent a lot of time teaching me and teaching a lot of people over the years. So it's a great topic for you to share your knowledge and especially your theory-based knowledge on it, which is excellent. But also, we aim to bring that into the land of reality too, so that we can learn and work out how we get better in our day-to-day life. Would you agree?
Yeah. Look, Marty, we talk about this a lot, is that for lots of people, there's, we can talk theory to the cows come home. In the end, you've got to give people practical ways to implement things that they can think about and do. And the proactive, reactive stuff is probably one of the most crucial bits. You and I have talked a lot about in the last couple of years, one of the great challenges most businesses have today is that as their stress levels go up, the chances are the brain's going to become more reactive, not proactive. And that's not a fault. In fact, that's a evolutionary development. So the thing that's important for me is let's try and give these guys today a chance to get some real semblance of the difference between the two of them. And I've got a couple of simple ways to measure reactive. And for me,
sorry to interrupt. Should we start with a pretty clear definition? I mean, when you think about that, what do you mean by reactive versus proactive?
Yeah. So for me, first of all, reactive is like a reflex.
Yep.
Right. So if I think about when I was a kid and I went to the doctor and they hit me on the, I've got my knee bent, they hit me on my knee and my foot pokes out. They run that thing along the bottom of your foot and your toes curl. Yep. If I walk across and I throw something in front of your face, you will blink. They're reactive processes. They're called reflexes. And the reason they're called that way is because really in simple terms is you get an external stimulus of some sort, and then you get a reaction or a reflex that comes into play. There is no processing of data into the brain. It's just, I'm going to do this without thinking. Right. And where the difference for me is that when proactive comes in, we turn on a filter. And the filter is thought. So proactive people run the stimulus through a thought pattern. And we'll talk about what some of those thought patterns could be later on in our conversation. Yep. And then they filter. And then after we've run it through a conscious thought, then we choose a process of which we would like to follow. So I've got angry with the dog. I can stop it with a kick, or I can grab it and go, hey, why did you do that? All that kind of conversation. I'm using the dog because it's running around the floor kicking a ball at the moment.
I absolutely can sympathize with those that react a little bit more, because I'm highly reactive. And that's if you look at the DISC profile, I'm a high D. So the first thing I do is I go after things as hard as I possibly can. And then later on go, oh, shit. Probably should have thought about that a little bit before I did it. So, but I mean, speaking from experience, the times that I am more proactive, it's much more successful, heaps less stress, and a whole lot more fun, to be honest, and easier. So I get it. I think it.
But you raise a really important bit, Marty, is that for lots of people, they have this view, and I used to be one of them, is that, I want to be thoughtful all the time. How do I do that? Well, you get run over by buses when you do stuff like that. You get hit by trains when you do stuff like that. You get mauled by a tiger when you do stuff like that. Because when you're sitting there going, what should I do in this situation? Sometimes you get killed. So there are some times when being reactive is a survival instinct that's very powerful for you. I want you to keep doing that. Okay. It's not that you have that ability to be reactive. I want you to keep that. It's going to keep you alive. But the question is, for me, how often do you become thoughtful? Because you and I, one of my favorite quotes, and we use this a lot, is that the realization for humans is that not only can you think, but you can think about what you think. And I remember the first...
Maybe I'm on my wall right here, so...
So one of the things that's been really valuable for me is not that I do that all the time, it's just that I do it regularly. Now, you choose how regularly. My job is not to tell you to do it. My job is to stimulate to think about doing it. Gotcha. And there are times when I get out of control where I don't do it for a couple of days, but there are some times when I'm doing it set times. I can tell you right now, my personal goal every day is to get thoughtful at least 5 times a day.
Yep.
So choose to make myself consciously aware of what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and how I'm doing things 5 times a day. Now, is that the right number? I don't know. It's about finding what works for you.
Yeah. And I think you raise a really good point, is that it's not right or wrong to be reactive or proactive. And they both play their part in what we do in our lives every day. But again, that awareness piece is really, really important. And I might just get you to well, I'll tell the story a little bit, but you know, when you go for a walk in the morning, from what I understand, you told me recently that you deliberately choose something that you want to be aware of on that walk. You know, it could be the color green, it could be a certain car, style of house, whatever that is, to make you show your, I guess, is that a form of practicing and training yourself to be more aware?
Yeah. So we could talk about things like mindfulness. Mindfulness is about becoming consciously aware of or choosing a thought process or pattern, as opposed to you running on your unconscious rolling behavior. You know, we know your brain's going to talk to you, to me. We're going to run constant dialogue somewhere between 150 to 180 words a minute, right? On a good day. When we get stressed, we can zoom up to over 750 words a minute. What are we saying to ourselves? And most people go, well, I don't know, and neither do I. And so I found that there are some times when I go out walking, I could get back after a 40-minute walk and go, I have no awareness of what I've just done inside my head.
Yep.
So what I look to do is I give myself a theme, and all it's done is about training my mind to do something differently. So you're right. There are times when I go out, how many houses have tin roofs? How many houses are painted red? How many purple flowers are there? It's nothing more than just to take my mind into a set direction where I choose to control what I think about.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean they're always valuable. Sometimes, like yesterday, the walk was, let's look at how many houses have whirligigs on the top of them.
Have what?
Whirligigs, you know, those little air fans? I call them whirligigs. 34 houses, right? Like, big deal. But what it did, it just changed my awareness, because my normal process is I just go and my brain's doing stuff. Now, the interesting thing is that when I take that change, what happens is I become aware of other things that I don't normally see. And that's one of the crucial things about proactive people. They have the ability to have increased awareness. And now we start talking about one of the real values of it, is that when we have increased awareness, we have increased options and choices. And then we get to a thing called optimism, because when we have increased awareness, we increase choices, we get more optimistic. We see the opportunity, not the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. And, you know, in the current time of April 2020, we all know what's going on. And Simon Sinek, who's a great author, one of both our favorites, he did a piece recently on LinkedIn, I believe, or his socials, was optimism is not positivity. You know, to be an optimistic person or about in your life or in your situation doesn't mean you have to be positive all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And I think you're right. It fits quite well with being more proactive in how you go about your day or your business. So with that in mind, you know, the clients you're working with, the clients I'm working with, and we do a lot of work in automotive, as an example. Would you say that and again, generalization, is we are in a more reactive or proactive mindset?
Yeah, right? It's a good question. As a general rule, though, we know a couple of things about the human brain. As stress and fear go up, we move towards reactive. We move out of the ability to think because our brains, in emergency, I've got to fix things, I've got to escape, I've got to fight, flight, freeze.
Yep.
So my brain's going to move to that. So as a general rule, as things become more tense, more challenging, more confronting, we're going to move towards reactivity.
Okay.
The challenge I have with that is that the minute we go to reactivity, we switch off our awareness of opportunity, our thought processes on our choices. We move to the known, not to the opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking now. The interesting thing with that is, being in the time of COVID-19 and the uncertainty that's out there, and the term unprecedented has been said too often, but it's so very true. My question is, I don't think that we're any more proactive when this event's not going on. I think we're just as reactive, and that's the bit I always can't put together in my head. Why don't we do what we know we should do?
Yeah, which is a wonderful question. It's that whole thing of the human brain, its desire for movement, its desire for change. When are most people going to change? When they have to.
Yep.
One of the great challenges around conflict or challenge or confrontation or discomfort is that we have a reason. You and I we use this as a metaphor a lot. When do most people go to the doctor? When they're sick.
When they're sick, yeah, exactly.
Right? When do most people start drinking 6 to 8 glasses of water a day? When the doctor says, if you don't do it, you're going to die, you bastard. And so we have this temptation to be very much habitual in the way in which we do things. And unless someone comes along and gives us enough pain, we ain't going to change. And so one of the things I actually, and this is going to sound a bit weird, and I probably am a bit weird, you already know that's true.
That's absolutely true.
But what COVID does for us is it creates pain around some of the things that we do that are ineffective. And it gives us a reason to want to change. Why is our conversation today is the realization right now is that the vast majority of people are sitting at home going, holy shit, I'm in pain. What do I do now?
Oh, I do.
And what we've got right now is step number 1 in change modeling, which is a thing called awareness. Right. And so in the conversation we'll have today is that we'll talk about every form of change that human beings have starts with a thing called awareness, conscious awareness that something's happening to me that I don't like.
Yep.
And my choice right now is, do I stop the pain? And for us, it's fight, flight, freeze is a just general rule. Or do I choose to think about, well, what do I want to create that's different to this? And now we have a really challenging piece, a part of your brain where I've got choice to think about what I want. Now, if we haven't done lots of that in practice, it's not a good idea to start it in the middle of a shitstorm and go, oh, I might try some of that new shit that Marty and Stu was talking about.
Yeah,
it's like, I know you and I play a lot of sport. You turn up at training on a Tuesday and a Wednesday to practice things for the game. You don't turn up halfway through the game and go, why don't we try something we've never done before and see how it works? Well, we've got 47
I'm pretty sure the teams I follow, that's their motive. I start doing some really dumb stuff. But one of my teams, I've been waiting, 34 years for a premiership. So, but you're right. You raised a really good point. And I think the change things is always such an interesting topic. And I've worked with salespeople so often and so repeatedly, and we talk about a really good idea and how they can enhance their business and the things that they can do. And we're talking 1 or 2 things, not a huge amount. And I come back 30 days later and I go, so how'd we go? What happened? Oh, yeah, no, I didn't do any of it.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So do you think it's a good idea? Oh, no, it's a great idea. We should definitely do it. I'm like, all right. So then we have to work on I have to work on a model for them to be okay with the change and then actually make the change. And us as humans, we're so incredibly intelligent, but God, we're dumb shit sometimes.
Yeah. And it's the simple answer is the strongest reason for us to change is pain.
Yeah.
And pain is one of the ones. So we have this really strong part of our brain that says, I need to move away from pain. But here's the weird bit. For lots of people, less pain is movement towards pleasure. So if I'm a 7 out of 10 in pain and I move to a 5 out of 10, my brain goes, oh, that's a lot better. So if I'm a sales guy, and one of the things that you and I would talk about in this model, and I'd certainly talk about today's marketplace, is most sales consultants are sitting there going, no one coming through the door, got no one to talk to. And you go, okay, cool. What prospecting have you done in the last 3 months? Oh, I don't do prospecting. Okay. Well, then just die on the vine, buddy. You're seriously not going to get anywhere. But so you say to them, I've really got a good idea on prospecting. And I've had a conversation with 5 people in the last 3 days about, here's some things they could do with prospecting. And they go, oh, I could never do that. I go, okay, well then don't. What are your choices? I don't have any. I go,
yeah.
So am I wasting my time here, or are you wasting your time here?
You know, one of my favorite books that I read at the start of every year that I recommend everyone read is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And it really is about what is the opportunity in this. And again, it's not about being positive and saying, oh, you know, everything's going to be great and it's all going to work out. It's going, well, hang on a minute. What can I do here and how do I go about it? Because what I'm currently doing isn't working. I mean, the definition of insanity is that, you know, same activity, expecting a different result. And that's rife in our sales industry, regardless of what you're selling, I believe.
Yeah, but it's rife in the human brain, Marty. So the simple concept for me, and where I had to get it years and years ago, was not just understanding that I had to be aware of the pain of my current reality, but I also had to be mentally and emotionally attached to the pleasure of the goal. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. You know, there's lots of goals I've achieved where I've gone, shit, that was hard work. I've lost weight and nearly died. You know, all sorts of wonderful things have happened along the way. But if you can't get associated with pleasure in the goal, you can't move away from the pain of the current reality. There's got to be a separation of those two.
Yeah.
And so if I want people to get anywhere near attached to moving to proactive, I've got to give them a sense of, I want the goal.
Yeah.
Right. And then, and like you and I have done hundreds of times, thousands of times with people we coach and work with, you sit there and go, well, so, okay, if that's the goal, if the goal is to sell 2 more cars or find 5 more customers to talk to, how would you like to do that? A goal without a plan is a wish.
Yeah.
And so we have too many people who confuse goal setting and wish making as being the same thing. They're completely different.
Yeah. I think also the goal setting thing, it's that, you know, well, what is it you want to achieve? I want to make another $20,000 this year. Okay.
Great.
And then, you know, that sort of stops, right? And my thing is, okay, well, what will that $20,000 actually give you? What will it allow you to do? What will happen? What will be different? How will your life be if you've got that extra 20,000? Because $20,000 is as a finite goal. But, you know, we want to think about kind of that infinite goal and go, well, if I've got that, then I can do this. And if I can do that, then I can be that, you know? So I think that's where we've got to be quite proactive in the way we go about how we do our business. Yeah, We've got a job to do. Absolutely. We've got to go to work. We've got to do our job. We've got task duties, KPIs, all that kind of thing. We've got to hit them. But the only way to be motivated and be quite proactive in the way we go about it is, what does hitting them actually give me?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a really important thing to consider. Okay, so
just before you do that, Marty, so if I could link that to, because we're going to have some people who are sales consultants here. You and I have talked for years about one of the number one goals of a sales consultant is to get the customer emotionally attached to you, emotionally attached to the business, emotionally attached to the product.
Yep.
Right? No brainer. But one of the things that we want to talk about here is it. The number one goal of this conversation for me, and if I was to talk about step number 1 for these guys to think about, how emotionally attached are they to their goals? Because if they're not emotionally attached to their goals, they won't be emotionally attached to the activity that gets them there. And then it's just more pain, not more pleasure. Because if they can't associate into the goal and the activity, they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And more importantly, if they don't own the activity as well as the goal, you and I get to manage them. Their manager gets to manage them, which means we sit there and go, have you done the shit we talked about? It was really important. And they go, no. Okay, great. That was a waste of time for you and for me. So that emotional attachment piece is a really bit. So our step number 1 from a proactivity point of view today we'll talk about is, number 1 thing, start getting emotionally attached to the goal, whatever it is. If it's your goal, get emotionally attached. Why do you want it? What will it give you that you don't have now? And why is it important to you? So why that sounded like, by the way?
Yeah. And the thing to remember, and I think for those listening need to understand, is goal setting is not that easy. So it's okay to be a little bit stumped by it, but you've got to put the effort in. And I'll be up front. I'm really shit at setting goals.
Yeah. It's hard work.
It is really hard work, but you've got to be able to build that future landscape for yourself and go, okay, what is it that I want that landscape to look like? And then you can backtrack and go, okay, this is what I've got to do to get there. I think that's really important. So it's not an easy thing to do, but you do have to be dedicated and spend the time and the effort and the brain power to actually make it beneficial.
Yeah. So we should talk about that, Marty, because I think that's part of our conversation. But if you look at the diagram that sits behind you, you know, the reality is that your current environment, we spend about 98% of our day thinking about what we've got, what it is, whether we like it, whether we don't. The 2%, which is the bit around where the neocortex sits, is our ability to use our thought process, our conscious and deliberate forethought to choose things that we want. We're going to spend about 2% of our day there if we're normal human beings. So the conversation then becomes, how do I get my brain to spend more time? And so then we start saying, well, then let's go to step number 2 as our next recommendation. Step number 2 to become more proactive is we need to take at least 3 to 5 times a day where we think about our goal and our current activity plan is it moving us forward?
Great. I love that. It's good.
So I don't want to wake up on a Monday morning and look at my weekly plan and go, here's my goal and here's my activity plan. And then Monday next week, come back and go, oh, I didn't do any of that shit. It's too late. You've just wasted a week.
Yeah.
So how do I get to a position where 3 to 5 times a day I stop and go, am I on plan? Am I on focus? Am I on target? Am I on track? Whatever analogy you want to use, but how am I interrupting my unconsciousness, my 98% to move to the 2%?
Yeah.
So how do we help people with that? And I know you and I have talked about this before, but when have we ever achieved goals is where we've got commitment and focus.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely.
To our activity plan. But the other one, and I don't want these guys to miss out, is that the other one, very few people do this by themselves. You know, some of the goals that I've achieved in my life, I've done it because I've got a buddy or a support person or someone who I'm going to sit there with on a regular basis and go, hey, Marty, here's what I've done so far. Here's how it's going. What are your thoughts on that? How do you think I'm going? And, you know, there are times when I'm a dick about stuff like this. You don't need to laugh at that. But, you know, and you and I have had times in the last 20 years or so since we've known each other where you've called me on behavior, I've called you on behavior because we've agreed to be able to do that for each other.
Yeah. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I know I've got to give you a call and I don't want to because I haven't done what I know I've meant to have done and you're going to give me shit about it. So, but
I've never done that.
That was the best 3 months of my life when I didn't talk to you. but you're right. And I think that's actually something that I had in mind from a question point of view is, you know, what is the support network you need? And look, that's going to be individual, I'm sure, for everyone. But if we're talking about in a business environment where you're a salesperson, you've got a manager, a GSM, whatever you want to call them.
Yep.
What does that support structure look like? And how do we get the guys to go, okay, this is something I'm going to need as part of my success and as part of my plan. You know, Brené Brown's one of my favorite authors and her research is in vulnerability. And I can tell you right now, I've had a relatively good career in the auto industry. And I swear every time I showed a moment of vulnerability, my career just got slingshot into the next level, the next category. So it's a really important part. And we don't show enough of it as humans at all. Yeah. Because I don't think we actually understand it that well. And this is probably going to be a whole other episode, to be fair. But it's an important part to turn around and say, I can't do this on my own. I need help. I need support to get there. Because quite frankly, a lot of the time we have fear in failing.
Yeah. So, Marty, that's a 4-hour answer to that question from my point of view. But we give it a rip. A couple of things. And Brené Brown stuff is perfect around that. But there are 3 things that I would throw into this conversation. Firstly, humans are social.
Yep.
Right. And the reason we're social is that we are stronger in a group than we are individually. Please don't miss that point, because what that says for all of us is we will get stronger if we learn from each other.
Yeah, great.
Right. And so one of the crucial bits for me is there are a couple of things that I hold true. So I'm a fan of buddies. I've got 3 people I go to for really strong evaluation, feedback, and criticism. First of all, I need to be able to respect the person's position.
Yep.
Right? I need to give them permission to give me straight up and down chat, and I do have permission. But I also have to have an agreement on what's appropriate and what's not for both of us. So when I sit in those conversations, I want someone to be able to sit there and go, I'd like to give you some feedback. Yeah, David, now's not the time. Right? But again, I have a full-time coach I talk to every 2 weeks. Right? And so I pay her to give me quality feedback. You know, I don't know how many times in the last couple of years when I've been talking to Susan, and she turns around and goes, Stuart, can we unpack that? And I just go, oh no. But she knows me because of my history and my background around that sort of stuff. And, you know, you've got to throw yourself into a position where you can know what you're doing. And there's, you know, the vulnerability is a really important bit, but, you know, I grew up in a very competitive sporting environment and a very competitive family. That wasn't good or bad, it just is. But what it taught me was that, you know, I'd always have my best foot forward. So criticism was not something I took too well to. And then when I started playing high levels of football, I had coaches who started coming and giving me criticism. I'd be going, oh, well, you're an idiot, you know. But, you know, it stopped me from progressing in my performance. And it wasn't, like you said, until I went, you know what, they're right. Yeah. And as much as I didn't like that, I had to face it. And so, you know, for all the people here, and this is for me, this is opportunity number 3 for learning in the conversation. We'll go back and touch these in a minute.
Yep.
Who are you getting your feedback from?
Yeah.
So where are you getting feedback? If you want to grow and challenge yourself out of unconsciousness, so from moving from reactivity to proactivity, please put yourself in a position where you get regular quality feedback from someone you trust and respect.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, we are the great deniers, you know. And I remember we talked about this once. I did a course a couple of years ago, and a whole bunch of people come through to the course. I go, so on a score out of 10, where are you in sales skills? And everyone in the room rated themselves between an 8 and a 9, right? And then we did a 4-day course, and when we got to the end of it, they were rating themselves as 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
So, you know, some person would walk in and go, hey, aren't you guys good? You took them from 8s and 9s and got them to 3s and 4s over a 4-day course.
Great trainer you are.
Yeah. Whoa, haven't we? But then we just recalibrated them because they were looking at people going, wow, he can do that. She can do that. That's better than me. And so they were not forced. They came willingly, but through the process of feedback and evaluation of other people and observation, and more importantly, that word consciousness and awareness, they were able to go, you know what? I'm not an 8, I'm a 7. I'm not a 6, I'm a 4. Yeah. And that's a really important bit. Sometimes we need that feedback, and that's a crucial bit for us. Get feedback.
You know, I think, and that even one of my favorite things to do, and I do it constantly, and I've done it with everyone that I've worked with, is at the end of the day, or close to the end of the day, it's what 3 things did you do well today? And what 3 things do you want to fix, change, and improve for tomorrow? Yeah. And I think so often we are so busy in a day, and then we get to the end, we go, oh God, that was a shit day. I was so busy. You know, I didn't achieve anything, which is completely untrue. And then you go home with a really bad mindset, and you go to sleep and you wake up with even shittier mindset. And it makes you less productive the next day, more reactive to what's going on. You're even reacting to what your own brain's telling you instead of being proactive, going, well, hang on a minute. No, I did do some good things today. And tomorrow I want to improve in these areas. You set yourself up to be much more proactive straight away the next day. So, I love that. When my team started doing it back to me before I did it to them, I knew we were onto something pretty good. Because they were challenging me too. Because I was asking everyone, but no one was asking me. So you've got to be quite conscious of that. So
there's an extension bit that goes with that, Marty. And I reckon we've done enough content for the guys today, and I'm going to wrap the last bit I want them to be aware of in our conversation today is that when you have a reactive brain, you switch on a thing called the negativity bias. Yeah. Right. And so what happens is that the more reactive your brain is, the more observant you are of the things that are going wrong for you, for the people around you, the environment, the situation, the circumstances. And so you collect shit. You know, like, here's all the things that went wrong. And so once you start looking, you find more, and the more you look, the more you find. You know, it's the red light, green light conversation we've always had around, if I look for red lights, I see red lights. If I look for green lights, I see green lights. They both exist.
I mean, Stu, that's been amazing. So obviously your knowledge and experience in this area is priceless. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay. If I don't know, I'll make it up anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do. So just as a recap, what are those 1, 2, 3, or 4 things that you think that the guy should go away and start to look at?
Okay. So we talked about so step number 1 is let's look to get emotionally attached to a goal. If your brain's going to change, it has to start thinking about pleasure in what we're aiming for, as opposed to the pain of their current reality. So if I want people to become proactive, get emotionally attached to a goal.
Yep, great.
Number 2, start thinking about some activities that are going to get you there.
Yeah.
Right. So
activity results, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to have to do something, because if I don't do anything, I'm making wishes. Let's not be wishful people. And then number 3 is that get some feedback. So, you know, if you think you're a 9, find out whether you're a 9. Ask 2 people who you know and trust. Here's where I think I am. Where do you think I am? If I could, what are 3 things I'm doing well? What are 3 things I could change? Get some feedback from people who you know, trust, and respect. Get some agreement around that. And then the last one, the switching off of that negativity bias, or the diminishing of the negativity bias, is by having regular conversations with yourself around, what are 3 things I did well today in accordance with my goal, in accordance with my proactivity, or in accordance with my plan, and what are 3 things I could change, improve, or make better tomorrow?
Yeah, fantastic. And extending that a little bit is, what 3 things you did well in accordance with your goal. I think that's really important. And again, I don't mind if people go, what 3 things did I do well? And they literally just talk about 3 tangible things. That's fine, because again, it's still going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But then you've got to go and be quite critical and self-critical and go, and did that contribute to my goal? What are the 3 things I did well to contribute to my goal? And again, if it's not 3 things, if it's 1 thing, that's fine. Like it's okay, as long as we're moving in the right direction. So, Stu, brilliant. Thanks again. Always good to chat, mate.
Look forward to our next one.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be good. So, all right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time, or hear you next time, or you'll hear us next time, whichever way we want to put it. So
they'll want to look at us. We're 2 good monkeys, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. Thanks, mate. See ya.
All right. Bye.